call was answered. The war room fell silent. A message had arrived. 4 simple words. We'll take care of it. Admiral Terran of the Allied Coalition stared at the screen in disbelief. A single transmission, brief, direct, had come from the one place no one ever thought to ask for help. Earth. Commander Rain clenched her jaw, frustration flashing in her eyes. That's it? That's all they said? Admiral Zirk, his insectoid limbs shifting uneasily, leaned forward. No mention of a fleet, no strategy, just that. Confusion filled the room. No one had an answer. Then, from the sensor station, an officer shouted, "Something just entered the system." The room froze. "Dominion reinforcements?" Core demanded. The officer swallowed. "No, sir, it's them." A single blue marker appeared on the holographic display, closing in fast toward their planet. One ship, a human ship. Shock replaced disbelief. "They sent one?" Rain snapped, her tail slamming against the metal floor. "Is this some kind of joke?" "Open a channel," ordered Terran. Static filled the speakers, and then a calm, deep voice spoke. "This is Captain Elias Mercer of the UNS Valkyrie. You called for help." The voice was steady, composed, unshaken. Terran frowned. "Yes, but one ship? You can't possibly think." "I've seen your situation," Mercer interrupted. "You're outnumbered, outgunned, and out of time." Rain growled. "Exactly. The Dominion is preparing to crush us, and you brought a single ship." There was a pause. Then Mercer's voice returned, firm and certain. "Trust me, one ship is enough." The line cut. The war room erupted in chaos. "This is insanity," Rain shouted. "Even with advanced tech, it's one against thousands." "The humans must have misunderstood our signal," Zirk muttered, his antennae trembling. But Terran said nothing. There had been something in Mercer's tone. Not arrogance, not desperation. Certainty. Minutes later, the Valkyrie entered planetary orbit. Unlike the massive battleships of the Alliance or the monstrous dreadnoughts of the Dominion, the human vessel was small, sleek, built for speed and precision. It didn't look impressive. Then the alarms blared. "Our scanners can't read it," an officer shouted. "No heat signature, no power readings." Zirk's mandibles clicked in disbelief. "It's like it doesn't exist." Moments later, the Dominion fleet appeared, a dark storm of warships blotting out the stars. Their commander's voice echoed across every frequency. "Allied scum, your end has come." It was High Warlord Serac, Supreme Commander of the Dominion. His forces had crushed 100 civilizations. His fleet could erase entire worlds. And now, he had come to finish this one. Terran felt a weight in his chest. This was it, the final battle. Then Mercer's voice came through one last time. "All right, let's get to work." The Valkyrie moved and vanished. One moment it was there, the next it wasn't. The Dominion ships barely had time to react before chaos erupted. One ship, one human, and a battle the galaxy would never forget. That night the stars didn't shine with distant light, they burned with the fury of war. Years earlier, the galaxy had already been dying. Worlds burned, armies shattered. The Allied Coalition, once a proud union of star nations, was crumbling. Their fleets were broken, their planets besieged, and their soldiers exhausted. The Dominion, ruthless and unstoppable, consumed everything in its path. Each victory was another world erased, each defeat a civilization lost. Now only one fortress world remained, hidden at the edge of the void. Deep underground, the surviving commanders of the Alliance huddled around a massive holographic map. Red markers surrounded their planet, the Dominion fleet. The few remaining blue ones, Alliance ships, blinked out, one by one. General Terran, leader of the Zorkai, clenched his fists. Once his people had been fierce warriors among the strongest in the galaxy. Now they were scattered, broken. Their weapons were failing. Their cities starved, their hope gone. "This is the end," murmured Admiral Zirk, voice hollow. "We have no reinforcements, no escape. When they strike, nothing will remain." No one argued. They all knew he was right. Then, the war room doors burst open. A young officer stumbled in, pale and shaking. "General, we've lost our last defense station. The Dominion is preparing for planetary assault." Terran slammed a fist onto the table. "Then we fight to the end." "With what?" Zirk snapped. "Our weapons are dying, our people starving. We can't win this." "There must be something we can do," cried Commander Rain, her reptilian voice trembling with rage. "We can't let them wipe us out." An older officer, one of the few veterans from the first years of the war, spoke softly. "There is one last option." Everyone turned to him. He hesitated, then said it. "We send a distress call." "To who?" Rain barked. Every major power is gone, or turned their backs on us. The officer swallowed hard. There's one species we've never contacted, one that's remained untouched by this war. The room fell silent. Everyone knew who he meant. Humanity. Terran frowned. That's madness. They're primitive, isolated on their homeworld. They've never fought a war of this scale. They're not weak, the veteran replied. I've seen glimpses of what they're capable of. Their creativity, their resilience, their cruelty when pushed to survive. Zerk's antennae twitched. Even if they answered, what could they possibly offer? A single human ship against the Dominion? The veteran leaned forward, voice low and certain. Once, I met a human, just a trader, but when I looked into his eyes, I saw something I'd never seen before. Terran frowned. And what was that? The officer's voice was calm, almost reverent. A species that doesn't know how to lose. The room went silent. It was insane. Humans had no empire, no fleets, no advanced weapons, barely beyond their own solar system, but they had nothing left to lose. Terran exhaled slowly. Send the transmission. They encoded the message at the highest level, a desperate plea not for victory but for survival, and they waited. Days passed. The Dominion tightened its grip, the end drew closer, and just as all hope was fading, a response came. 4 simple words, we'll take care of it. No fleet, no speech, just one message. And then one ship appeared on their scanners. One ship, one human, and a war that would change the galaxy forever. The Dominion fleet had never known fear, until that day. For centuries, they had crossed the stars, leaving nothing behind but burning ruins. World after world had fallen, pleading for mercy that never came. Now they hung above Zor Prime, their cannons charged with annihilation. The last bastion of resistance stood before them. But something was very wrong. Before the entire Dominion fleet stood a single ship, a human ship. High Warlord Silak, seated upon his colossal command throne aboard the Duncaller, glared at the lone vessel with disdain. He turned to his second-in-command. Destroy it. The order echoed, and the first volley was unleashed. A wall of plasma, railgun fire, antimatter torpedoes. The void itself burned as the barrage surged toward the Valkyrie One. The power of that assault could have erased a city in seconds. And then the ship vanished. Gasps filled the Dominion bridge as a colossal explosion lit the space where the human vessel had been. Scanners flickered. Nothing. No target. Selak's eyes narrowed. What trick is this? He growled, and for the first time in Dominion history, their ships began to explode. The first to fall, the Bloodfang, a battle cruiser armed with planetary bombardment cannons. Its engines detonated without warning. Then the Iron Howl. Its shields collapsed as a beam of pure white energy sliced through armor and ignited its core in an instant. The Dominion fleet, renowned for discipline and fearlessness, fell into chaos. No enemy detected, an officer shouted. No incoming fire signatures, another cried. Ships were being destroyed by a ghost. And then the Valkyrie revealed itself. It reappeared in the center of the formation, its dark hull glowing against the fires of their dying ships. Silak felt his blood freeze. This is impossible. The Valkyrie turned. Its frontal cannon began to glow, a color unknown to any weapon of war. It fired a single beam. The shields of the Duncaller shattered like glass. Panic spread like wildfire. The Dominion had never seen such power. Their grand fleet, conquerors of countless worlds, was now being hunted by one ship, one human. The Valkyrie didn't move like a warship. It bent through space itself, slipping between folds of light like a specter. Invisible to sensors, untouchable to targeting systems, yet striking with terrifying precision. Another Dominion vessel, the Black Fang, fired blindly into the void. A moment later, it was torn in half. On the Duncaller's bridge, officers screamed. Targeting systems spun out of control. Predictive algorithms failed. Then, a voice cut through the chaos. A calm, human voice. Cold, relentless. This is Captain Elias Vance of the UHS Valkyrie One. You came here believing yourselves invincible. Silence fell across the Dominion flagship. You wanted war, Vance continued. Now you'll learn what that truly means. Then the massacre began. The Valkyrie moved like a phantom, weaving through Dominion lines, unleashing devastation with every pass. Enemy ships exploded one after another. The Storm Howl, a Dominion dreadnought, vanished in a blinding flash. The Warbringer fired every weapon it had, hitting nothing but empty space. One precise shot from the Valkyrie punched through its bridge, leaving the giant ship adrift and dead. The Dominion had never suffered losses like this. For the first time, the hunters had become the prey. Selak gripped his throne, fury and terror swirling in his gut. This is madness. No, came the cold voice of Captain Vance. This is war. Silence, broken only by the wail of damage alarms. Selak's mighty armada, the pride of the Dominion, was being reduced to ash by a single ship. In the chaos of burning wrecks, the survivors began to flee. Retreat, the only rational command. Selak had never known defeat, not in all his centuries of conquest, until now. A single human ship was dismantling his empire piece by piece. The Valkyrie blurred in and out of existence, moving beyond the laws of physics. Each time it struck, a Dominion battleship went up in flames. On the bridge of the Dunkauer, panic reigned. "High Warlord, we must retreat," cried an officer. Selak's crimson eyes flared. "Retreat? From a single ship?" Before the officer could respond, the lights flickered. Static hissed across the main display. Then, a human face appeared. Captain Elias Vance. Blue eyes like frozen steel, staring straight into Selak's. "This is Captain Vance, of the UHS Valkyrie One. Do you understand now?" Selak bared his fangs. "You dare speak to me? You dare challenge the Dominion?" Vance tilted his head slightly. "Challenge you? No. I didn't come to challenge you." A shockwave rippled through the Dunkauer. Another Dominion flagship, the Bloodfang, was obliterated in a single burst of light. "I came to end you." Selak's fury cracked, and something new took hold. Fear. The Valkyrie wasn't fighting a war. It was hunting. One by one, Dominion ships fell, executed with surgical precision. Selak finally understood. They had chosen the wrong enemy. "Call the War Council," he roared. "We must regroup." But another voice answered, sharp, cold, unyielding. "No." Vance leaned forward, his face calm, eyes burning with resolve. "There will be no regrouping." Selak's heart sank. This human wasn't boasting. He was delivering judgment. "You started this war. You thought you could conquer us." The Valkyrie vanished again, then reappeared behind another cruiser. "You believed humanity was weak." A flash, the cruiser detonated, but now you see the truth. Vance's voice thundered across the comms. "The war is over." Explosions tore through the Dunkauer. The mighty flagship trembled, its decks collapsing under the onslaught. Selak watched in horror as his fleet disintegrated. The Dominion's unstoppable armada reduced to drifting wreckage by one ship. The bridge burned, fire, smoke, silence. Selak rose to his feet, claws trembling. This cannot be. The Dominion, that had crushed civilizations for centuries, enslaved entire worlds, was now shattered by one human vessel. A desperate signal cut through the static. "High Warlord, we must regroup. Humanity is far stronger than—" The transmission ended abruptly. Selak turned just in time to see it. The Valkyrie, a shadow against the stars, sleek, lethal, moving with impossible grace. One shot and silence. The Admiral's ship split apart in brilliant fire. Selak stared at the explosion, and in that burning light, he understood. This was no war. This was a reckoning. Vance's voice returned, cold, merciless. "Still standing, Warlord?" Selak rose, defiant. "You think this is victory? You think that ship makes you invincible? That your kind cannot be defeated?" A brief pause, then a soft laugh, not mocking, not arrogant, but filled with quiet irony. No answer came from Vance. "This ship is nothing but a tool," he had said. Another explosion flooded the displays, another Dominion vessel gone. Then Vance's voice sharpened, cold and unyielding. "Humanity is the reason you will die." The comms cut. In the void, a whirlwind of fire and wreckage swept through the remnants of the Dominion fleet. The Valkyrie moved like a phantom, eradicating the last enemy ships with terrifying accuracy. One by one they fell, no mercy, no hesitation. Selak slammed his claws onto the console as the Dunkauer shuddered. He could not fathom how those beings he had called primitive were tearing his armada apart. "Retreat!" High Warlord Selak bellowed across the comms, his voice raw with fury. A direct order sent to every remaining ship, "Withdraw." This is an order. But a violent tremor rocked his flagship. He was thrown to the deck as alarms screamed and smoke curled from the ceiling. Critical reports scrolled across the monitors. The Valkyrie had struck a mortal blow. The Dunkauer was dying. Panic and rage warred in Selak's mind. Humans, weak, primitive, how had they reached this far? He reached for his last desperate card. If he could not win, he would drag as many of them as possible into oblivion. Claws stained with fuel and blood, Selak keyed the emergency protocol, the antimatter core overload. A single detonation that would consume the entire fleet in a monstrous radius. The countdown began. 10 minutes to annihilation. Selak smiled, a cruel, triumphant curve. "Let's see you escape this, human," he snarled. Aboard the Valkyrie, Captain Elias Vance watched the flagship's status on the main screen. "Sir," said his lieutenant, voice tight, "we're seeing a spike. She's going to detonate." Vance's jaw hardened. "The Dominion intends to immolate themselves and take us with them." "Cowards," someone on the bridge growled. "How much time?" Bass asked the tactical officer. 9 minutes, 30 seconds, came the reply. It was bad. If the flagship's core blew, the blast would wipe everything within range, even the Valkyrie. They had to stop it. Back on the Dunkauer, Selak watched the countdown tick lower. 9, 8, his crew's screams mixed with the crackle of fires. To him, this would be the victory of the dead. Then, the monitors blinked to black. Selak's cruel grin faltered. When the screens returned, the timer was frozen at 7 minutes. It did not move. Selak whispered, incredulous, "What?" A human voice replied, calm, implacable. "Nice try, warlord." The chill that ran through Selak was the chill of the impossible. The Valkyrie's cyber warfare teams had gone to work, hacking the detonation protocol. "Captain, core detonation frozen," the cyber chief reported. "We can't hold it forever. It'll regain control in under 5 minutes. 5 minutes is enough," Vance said. "Prep the boarding teams." Alarms screamed aboard the Dunkauer. Unauthorized boarding detected. Selak could not believe it. His forces had been shattered, his flagship crippled, yet now humans were boarding a dying warship. The bridge doors exploded outward in a shower of sparks and smoke. A vanguard of human soldiers poured through, weapons ready. Dominion guards lunged, then collapsed, overwhelmed in seconds. Selak snatched for his weapon, snarling. He would die before he yielded. A barrel pressed to his head stopped him. Before him stood Baz, uniform immaculate, stance unbreakable. Bass had not come to parley. Selak spat venom. "You think this changes anything, human? Kill me if you must. Win this battle, but the Dominion." Bass's voice was steel. "It's over, Selak." For the first time in his long life, true terror cracked Selak's composure. His empire, centuries of conquest and annihilation, was collapsing. Bass squeezed the trigger. Selak's reign ended in an instant. The Dunkauer shuddered, its decks gave way. Around them, the Dominion fleet disintegrated. The battle concluded. The Dominion armada had been annihilated. The warlord was dead. Humanity had done what no other species ever had. It had risen against the galaxy's mightiest empire and won. The Valkyrie drifted away from the smoking carcass of the flagship, its hull lit by the dying fires. Vance ordered one final transmission, sent to every remaining Dominion holdout. A simple message, a warning, delivered with the calm of a final verdict. The war is over. Surrender or be erased. For the first time in history, the galaxy trembled at the voice of humanity. Silence followed the ultimatum. Then, from wreckage and retreat, pockets of Dominion commanders yielded. Terrified enclaves relayed the message. Hope stirred in corners that had known only despair. The long night of conquest and subjugation was ending. On the Valkyrie's bridge, the crew exhaled. They had sacrificed, struck hard, and paid for it in blood. On the Valkyrie's bridge, the crew exhaled. They had sacrificed, struck hard, and paid for it in blood. But they had done the impossible. Captain Elias Vance stood, his face lit by the glow of distant ruins. Boss at his side. Admiral Rain receiving the transmissions from survivors across Zor Prime. The galaxy, wounded, grieving, had been shifted onto a new path. And as the Valkyrie sailed into the dark between stars, leaving behind smoldering wrecks and smoking battlegrounds, one truth remained. Humanity had been underestimated. Humanity had delivered judgment. Humanity had survived. This was not the end of the story, only its turning point. But for now, the war had stopped. The stars once again held a fragile kind of silence.